Hello and welcome back to Just Another Football Podcast. Back again for the second time this week. And I'm joined by Fergal tonight to go over some of the Premier League action, among other stuff that's gone on this week, both on and off the pitch. Fergal, how you doing, mate?
Very, very well. Yeah, I'm back from my
Back from your
gallivanting.
travels.
Yeah, was in the
Beat
beautiful
me to
city
it.
of Lisbon.
Mm-hmm.
It's stunning city. It was a
Lovely
bit of a
place.
last minute trip, so didn't know what to expect. And I'll definitely be back there at some point. Beautiful city. And went to a Benfica game. Had a
Mm-hmm.
Bafana, which if you don't know is a lovely. It's pork and a bap. That's the football food.
Is
And
it?
one of them on a super buck. Well, actually,
They're nice.
I had a couple of the Bafanas. They were that nice,
Yeah.
and a super buck, and then saw Benfica lose at home, and that was interesting. Obviously Benfica, they expect to be winning the league title every season, or at least challenging.
Mm-hmm.
They're not having a good season this year, and Gil Vicente are having a better season than what they're usually expecting, and
Yeah.
got a 2-1 win. Young 29-year-old Pedrino ran the show
Mm-hmm.
from them, got 2 assists, and was just generally brilliant. But it was interesting seeing the fans' reaction. They all got out a white hanky and started waving it, like almost like a "you should surrender, you should resign." That's what I haven't looked up the significance of it, but that's what
Yeah.
I'm guessing. What it was, and then there was the classic, like, it was really good to be. I've never been in an environment like that. Like, the grand scheme of things, I haven't been too many live games, so I haven't experienced like the different atmospheres. And they were after losing the League Cup final against Sporting, who are their Lisbon derby
Rivals. Yeah.
rivals.
I've been.
They
That's the
lost.
only ground I've been to. It's Lisbon. Sporting Lisbon.
They lost that on Friday, and I was there on Tuesday.
Blimey.
And
Yeah.
so it went 1-0 down, and it was like really negative. In fairness to the ultras were, like, I don't speak Portuguese, but the chanting sounded fairly positive throughout the game. But then this whistling, and the like
Yeah.
European
Yeah.
whistle.
It is
It's
European, isn't it? You see it at a lot of these ground.
it's
Yeah.
it's
In
it's
Spain and
not a
Portugal,
boo.
especially.
It's like a really high pitched, and the
Whistle. I
stadium.
don't know how they do it, mate. I don't know how they do it. I really don't.
It's like it's almost like, do you flood that into the tannoy system, because it's so
Yeah.
consistent. It's and there was only about it was only about half full. It really wasn't that many people. That was a midweek game, and they're after losing, so I don't think that many. And it was against a team that aren't that big in Gil Vicente, and Gil Vicente were brilliant, and were dominated in possession, but were probably had better opportunities. But yeah, no, a really interesting experience, and first time being in like a toxic atmosphere. It's like gave me a taste for what Arsenal are like whenever it was all gone wrong. But yeah,
Yeah.
got to hear the European deafening whistle in real life, and they're all up chucking flat wee hankies, white hankies. They're
Yeah. I mean,
waving.
it's funny. Not only did we copy like the architecture of their stadium, because if you notice, it's like really similar to the Emirates, the
Right.
Benfica stadium. It's like remarkably similar in the architecture of it. Well, not only have we copied that from the movie, we've copied the negativity of the fans inside the ground from them as well. We've given it to the fans. I mean, to be fair, if they lost to Sporting Lisbon and then lost to some punters down the bottom of the league, and they're not having a particularly good campaign,
But
I mean, I'm
in fairness to
not
Gil Vicente,
surprised.
they're fifth, but there's like a big points gap between third where Benfica are, and then fifth.
Yeah.
So that but they were worth the win, and it was like, saw Jan Vertonghen and Adele
Was
didn't
Otamendi
get
playing?
on, but I saw Adele
That's right, plays them as well, doesn't he? Yeah, I remember this from last season. Actually, they just had a load of like washed Premier League players in their starting 11 and squad. That's interesting. I've never been. I've been the only game, as I said, I've been to Sporting Lisbon, but that was against Arsenal, so it wasn't like a an authentic European game like that. It's on the
The
bucket
only
list
other
for
one
sure.
I was at, which turned out to be actually really good, was Nice versus Marseille.
Yeah,
And
William
little
Saliba
bit of
derby.
a rivalry, and Nice won, and the ultras were really good in that game. And I saw I would have saw Batshuayi playing
Yeah,
for Marseille, and there's another couple of like random players that ended up having goes in the Premier League. That was one with my dad that was it was really really good. But yeah, I think they had and I saw AC Milan play Lazio, which was probably the worst game of all three. It was really drab, but it got to
yeah.
be in the San Siro for
That's
that.
on the
Which
bucket list. Yeah, so
you need
that's
to
a
be
great one to
quick
go
because
to.
I think they're about to tear it down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think the San Siro is going to be tear down because I think it was built for Italian 90, so 30 years ago now.
Wow, blimey. That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's interesting. But good trip, Vogel, overall.
Very, 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 very good trip. I'll have to be back at some point. It's a
Yeah,
beautiful
so it's
city.
very like it's interesting, Lisbon. Not to like make this a tourism podcast, but it's a lovely city. It's not spoken about some of the other like
No,
major European cities. Like, oh, you've got to go to Rome, or you've got to go to Berlin, or got to go to Madrid, or whatever. It's not like put in the same category. So, and it's lovely.
I thought it was really, really nice. Some lovely big squares. And
Mm.
there's not a lot going on. Not a lot of positives going on in football. So we'll indulge in this.
Yeah,
It's I really recommend. The other one I'd recommend that is a
yeah,
bit like Lisbon and is not really talked about is Bordeaux
really.
in France. Really, really lovely city. I'd
Mm.
highly recommend going there. I had a lovely time there once, and
Yeah.
and the other one in France, which isn't a city, but it's just an unbelievable landmark to go see, is Mont Saint Michel, which is
Yeah.
this like Disney looking castle, and it's on an estuary, so the only road that goes to it in high tide is covered over by water.
Mm.
But and it's like literally a long strip of road to this big mountain of a town, which would have been like in medieval times this big castle, the main spot called Mont Saint Michel. Give it a Google. It looks spectacular. It looks like the Disney logo in real life.
Hmm.
And it's really fascinating, and it's like in north of France, in Normandy, I think it is.
Yeah.
Well worth a visit. Anyway, that's my
There you go, folks.
tangent.
There's your travel section of the podcast. So you can't say we don't give you some
Yeah, some
great
culture.
nuggets of information. Yeah, it's cultural, multicultural podcast. Come to expect it at this point. But anyway, moving on. Just while we're talking about travels, Chelsea are on their travels at the moment. The Club
Yeah.
World Cup out in the UAE. Just quickly, what did you make of their result against? Was it Al Hilal? I think they played and they won 1-0. Do
It's
you
very.
particularly care about the Club World Cup? I mean,
You know what I actually do? I really want to win it because we didn't win it the last time.
mm,
And for that reason, I hope we really do go for it. Yeah, Jardim's the manager. The manager
yeah.
I actually wanted Chelsea to be in charge of Chelsea
I was
at
gonna
one
say
point.
I couldn't believe that. I saw that yesterday. I was like, he was the Monaco manager, right? When
Yeah.
they got to the semi-final, and he was tipped for a lot of the big jobs at that point, and he somehow ended up over there. I mean, I can't believe it.
I think it's a case of like he's expected a way higher job, and then that sort of caliber hasn't come in for him, and then
Mm,
he's been a bit too picky for the ones below because surely he's decent, but I think some of the he's the fourth in the Saudi league. That's what the commentary said. I don't
yeah.
think he's doing an amazing job. Obviously, won the Asian Championship, Champions League equivalent,
Mm,
um, but not doing so well this season. So interesting to see how he does.
yeah.
There was a Marega that played for Porto against Chelsea last year. Pereira played for West Brom. That
Hmm.
pumped Chelsea 5-1, something like that. It was like Sam Allardyce's um
5-2.
one good one.
Yeah. God,
5-2 it was, yeah.
I was thinking, when was that? And it was the end of last season, wasn't it? That's COVID
Yeah.
football for you. You just forget some of these games ever happened.
It all blended into one, didn't it?
Yeah,
Um
blimey.
And there was one other player I can't think of that was familiar. But Al Hilal had their moments, done all right. Chelsea a bit off the pace. Kai Havertz done well. Mount done well whenever he came on.
Lukaku scored a goal.
Lukaku finally scored a goal. He can't get much handier than the one he did. It was like mistake by the defender, fell to him inside the 6-yard box.
Yeah,
just pumped it home. So like, yeah, it's good, but man, it needs to improve quickly. We went back to 3 at the back, which I get why, but I would have been, can we keep up this 4 at the back, because I do believe it's the future. And like getting in as many. Ziyech has had enough turn in form as well, compared to what he was doing. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure about it all, but it's we're on. Hopefully, we should win this, but Palmeiras is, by all accounts,
they're a better team. They're a much better team than Al Hilal. It'd be a harder game.
Yeah, and with the form we're on, and with how much it matters to Brazilian clubs, I think it will be a very tricky game, compared to Al Hilal. I was listening to a Chelsea podcast by The Athletic, straight out of Cobham, and it was one of them, their journalists suggested it with how poorly Chelsea are doing, with how much it matters to Palmeiras, that Chelsea were actually the underdogs going into the game.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, I would,
I
think
about that as well. I get the point, but I
wouldn't go that far.
Chelsea can never be underdogs unless we're playing one of the other top teams in Europe.
Yeah. No, I think they're fair. It's just interesting because obviously Arsenal never won the Champions League, well documented, so we've never played in the Club World Cup. And like I don't know how much it really. I mean, Chelsea are in 5 competitions this month, so you've got to think they're looking at prioritising. Certainly 2 of them, and it's a realistic chance to win a trophy, I suppose. So I just didn't know what kind of the general.
After losing it the last time and how sort of just like pathetic it was. It was like I remember it sort of being like we went 1-0 down. I think it was relatively late on in the second half anyway. I can't really remember it too well. But I remember going and then I remember David Luiz, because he was Brazilian, he was desperate to win it.
Yeah.
And he was like trying to drive stuff. All the other players were like sort of caught on to the fact that we should really be winning this a bit too late. And then as a result, it like we didn't win it.
Yeah.
If we lose it again, it would genuinely be disappointing, like really disappointing. Like I want to be world champions. It can't be. I want to have the
It's quite a nice tag, isn't it? Like, as much as obviously you're not beating, probably great teams. Like, they wouldn't, they're not going to be great teams.
It means more the fact that we lost the last
comparison.
If we had won it already, you would be like, let's play as many kids as we can. But there's literally no kids on the bench. There was no Harvey Vale or anybody from the academy. It was all the usual squad players, and it was the same in the FA Cup game. And I think it's just a matter of trying to keep up match fitness to a certain extent. So,
interesting.
But yeah,
be interesting to see. That's the overseas update on the different elements of this podcast. Yeah. Back into England. I think before we talk about some of the games that have gone on during midweek, I think obviously the one thing that has dominated the headlines has been a certain individual who plays for West Ham, and what he gets up to in his spare time with his former, I should say, household pet.
As he's known as Kurt Happy, unless there's a cat around Zouma. Like, this is a player. It's actually one of my players that I genuinely had I thought of highly.
Yeah, I thought he was kind of just like I have to say with Kurt Zouma. I've always said like he's quite clumsy as a player. He's got physical actually, a bit clumsy. But I never had him down. I always thought he was sort of a bit of a happy-go-lucky chap. You know what I mean? And it's sort of it did surprise me. I'm not saying there's certain footballers you expect to go be going around booting cats.
Let's go
be
through our
crude.
top 3 likely to abuse a cat.
And he wouldn't be in my top 3. No, but in all seriousness, I was amazed. I was absolutely amazed, and it was horrifying. I mean, I own a dog. I don't know if you own any household pets.
No,
but
I've never had any pets, and to be honest, this definitely hits less home to me than clearly it does other people. Just I don't have any pets. I don't really like cats an awful lot.
No, neither do I. But I think it's
I can see the wrong in it. You shouldn't, especially a vulnerable animal like that. It's like.
I think it's the idea.
What the fuck are you doing?
It's weird, isn't it? I just don't understand it. It's something I just can't identify with, just on a human level. It's just downright weird, really, isn't it? I shouldn't be laughing, but I think that kind of the main talking point, obviously, West Ham and David Moyes, they ended up playing him in the game against Watford, which I think then made it more of a talking point because it's still an internal matter for West Ham. They're still deciding what punishment is appropriate. I saw stuff going around that he'd been fined, I think, 250,000.
So he's been fined 2 weeks' wages. He's got lost his contract with the RSPCA.
Adidas, wasn't it?
And the RSPCA
have taken his cat. I saw that. Yeah,
2 cats he has, and they've taken both of them.
I saw his brother as well. His brother, who's videoing it, lost his contract with some lower league club, whoever he was playing for. It wasn't anyone of note. But it stems the question, I think, kind of for something like this, because it's unprecedented. I mean, I've never seen anything like this happen before with a footballer or a sports person. What punishment is appropriate? What is the appropriate level of punishment? Because there's stuff gone on in the past. I mean, Luis Suarez, for example, has bitten 2 people on the pitch. He's also been racist to an opponent. He was proven guilty, and he was banned for something like 8 games. I mean, and I don't want to get into this an area where you sort of start comparing what stuff is worse within football. Because this was 8 games, this should be 5. It's a dangerous game to play, but it is a tough question to answer, isn't it? A lot of people are unhappy.
I was having this conversation with someone this evening. There's a lot of with all the cancel culture, with all the stuff that's going on in the world at the moment, especially with males getting prosecuted for different things. It is an interesting question, just in general. What is an appropriate punishment for different things? We're not going to get into that massively, but I think it's a general topic in the world at the moment as to what different crimes what the punishment should be, and what sort of the social one should be. At what point should because the next wee while, Kurt Zouma, anytime his name will come up in a pub, there will be a cat joke at some point in that conversation. So at what point does everybody sort of forgive him and stop doing that in the wide scheme of things? And that's just there isn't a real answer to that. I think what's happened to him is more than fair enough, in my opinion. I think the West Ham probably shouldn't have played him
in that game.
In that game, but at the same time, I'm like, that's definitely just a PR thing. It's
I basically
the only reason you're not playing him is because it makes West Ham look bad.
But also, I think because it's a unique situation where he was actually getting booed by some of his own fans, and I think that's the thing where David Moyes' rationale for picking him, and he explained it after the game, was he's in our best 11, he's one of our better players, so he plays. Which, if you take everything out of it, I understand that. But is it when you factor in the fact that it's going to make a lot of people unhappy, and how's he going to play as a result of it? Now, they won 1-0, they kept a clean sheet. I didn't watch the game, so I didn't see his performance in particular. But when you factor all that other stuff in, is it wise to just take him out the firing line for a couple of games, do your internal investigation, decide on your punishment, which they ultimately have, and then put him back in? I think I think there has to be an amount of forgiveness that we're going to show towards people. As you've said, you can't just have this culture where if you make a mistake, because you're a sports person, because you're paid a lot of money and you're expected to uphold a certain level of social conduct and set examples for people, you can't just have it where you can't make any mistakes. He's made a big mistake. I think his actions are totally unacceptable. He's had his pets taken away and he shouldn't own any pets in the future. I think that's absolutely fair. I think it's also fair that he's had to pay a fine. And if people want to pull out their sponsorship of him, that's their prerogative to do so. I understand that.
At the end of the day, this is going to sound really callous. At the end of the day, the cats are still alive.
No, I understand your point. And they've been rehomed.
They've been rehomed. Hopefully it doesn't like impact them too much. I don't have a clue about cats. Whether this whether it's a one-off, and like I know my auntie.
It probably isn't. I think it probably isn't just because it was filmed. I get the impression it wasn't, and I know that's kind of you're inferring.
I get the opposite impression that because it was filmed.
I just think it was. I don't want to spend time like hypothesizing. I think the point is that it's happened. He's been punished for it. You know, people. I think it was Chris Kirkland was on TalkSport, like saying he should never play again, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. To be honest, it was he was clearly emotional about it. I think he owns cats or whatever, and he was saying I couldn't even look at him in the dressing room. No, I don't mean that.
He owns cats. No, I know. That's bad for me.
The point was he was
in the whole thing ridiculous.
Yeah,
to be honest, it's like the man's lost 250 grand for hitting a cat, and maybe some people think that's not enough. For me, I'm like that's.
I think we've become a bit we're losing the ability. I think because of other stuff that's gone on in the game and painted football in a poor light. We're maybe losing the ability to show forgiveness. And I just think you look at it and he as we've said, he's paid financially, he's had the cats taken away from him. Maybe he won't play some of the upcoming games. I think that's far enough. And I think I don't think that's particularly controversial to say. There might be people that feel strong about it, as we've said, you know, and I completely understand that. But I kind of have quite a neutral stance on it all. I think you can argue that he does it.
Yeah, the other thing for me is like I never saw this coming in him. That he
said that, didn't we? I mean,
and that maybe that shouldn't count towards anything for him, but like he does come across like a very jovial guy that wouldn't do this sort of thing. And maybe as I said, I think the fact that he filmed it, maybe he's like.
Well, I think the impression I got from that it wasn't. It's obviously cruel, but they thought it was like funny, and it's just really badly judged.
That was the weirdest thing about it.
That's what I'm saying.
It wasn't like he was annoyed at the cat.
No, he thought it was funny.
Someone's filming like from a like a clearly like hidden viewpoint and like secretly filming him. It was like. This is hilarious. We're gonna film this because I'm hitting a cat. Ha ha ha.
And that's the bit where I say I just don't understand that. I understand that less actually than you know.
And if the cat bit you or something, and then you slap
and you just react.
You react to that. I genuinely get that more, and maybe that's even a bit ridiculous. But like I'd understand that more than. And like
what he did,
he was hitting the cat for amusement, and that's just like it literally doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
No, I can't believe this.
This has been discussed on the football podcast, Harry. Words have been discussed.
I never thought I'd see the day. I never thought I'd see the day.
When it's perhaps accepted or more accepted to hit a cat than other situations.
Can we go back to talking about travel? I was quite enjoying that bit.
Yeah, which city?
Any European city recommendations there? Let's talk about some. Yeah, terrible. Let's discuss some actual football because there has been some football played during this midweek. I mean, it's felt like ages. It's been about a 3-week break for Arsenal because we weren't in the FA Cup. Kind of major talking points from. I mean, West Ham actually ended up winning, which was quite interesting. They won 1-0. So they got the business done on the pitch, and then
great game from
got
Zouma.
hammered off it. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's interesting with the results. It is interesting with what's gone on this week, though, because I have to say I expected Spurs and Man United to win. I certainly didn't expect them both to slip up, and they did. Spurs lost 3-2 at home to Southampton. Man United drew with Burnley. What did you make of, like, where does this leave everybody, going into the sort of rest of the season?
Well, yeah,
You saw that you watched the Man United game, didn't you? The Burnley one.
And they were out of ideas for a lot of now. The whole what did you see the Harry Maguire thing about it being called offside?
Yeah,
that was an interesting point. I thought it was right.
Well, it's a similar thing to the Villa one in the FA Cup, which was disallowed, which is the same idea that someone's offside and technically interfering with play. I think you could argue Rodriguez wasn't going to head the ball, so maybe it's a bit harsh, but ultimately Maguire runs offside and then shoves someone. So I think
I don't think you can definitively say Rodriguez wouldn't have gotten
no,
in the way.
I think if you're doing the mental gymnastics of it all, though, and saying like, would he have got to it? I don't know. I think it is fair to rule it out. I think the other one they had ruled out was a foul by Pogba, who puts his hand in his face. And I think basically what I would say is for 45 minutes, Man United were good. Burnley were dreadful. And I think that's the bit where if I'm a Man United fan, I'm disappointed because you know what Sean Dyche is like. He's not going to go into the dressing room and say, "Oh, well played, lads, keep going." Like, they're fighting for their lives down there, and they were shocking in the first half. So you have to anticipate that they're going to get better. They're going to come out quick at the start of the second half, and you have to deal with it better than they did. I mean, the goal they give away
it was a good goal, but your man.
It was very good from Weghorst. Very good play, very good touch. Skins from Maguire and McTominay.
I thought Jay Rodriguez got across Maguire. And
it was clever.
It was clever. I thought it just looked like is Maguire. I couldn't actually end up coming up with a definitive decision whether or not Maguire could have leant on him, could have done something.
Tough, isn't it? Because he's last man. He
was last man, and but I just felt like he was nearly at shoulder to shoulder. Could he have done something?
It's tough. Making a last man challenge is always risky. I mean, he said that after the game. He done an interview. I know it annoyed a lot of Man United fans. Some of the stuff he said after the game about how they should have scored the second, and sort of seemed to absolve himself of some of the blame for his part in the goal that Burnley scored. But it's disappointing because if you're Man United, they've got a winnable run of games in the next 5, and then it gets tough for them in March with the Champions League obviously mixed in there as well. And arguably on paper that's your easiest game. You're playing the team bottom of the table, albeit as I said, fighting for their lives. But you've got to expect to win that game. Once you go 1-0 up, you got to kill the game. And maybe they should have. Maybe they should have been 2-0 up at half time, and that would have been it. But once Burnley got it back to 1-1, it kind of seemed like they didn't have any answers to that Man United.
No,
they couldn't then change the momentum of the game back. And so it was disappointing for them. And it's weird with this top 4 race because it kind of seems to change week on week. I think it was Tottenham's lose.
You think about the start of the season. It was Arsenal being terrible, Spurs being great, and then within one game it was all flipped on its head.
Yeah, I mean they won their first 3, then lost their next 3, and we won our next 3, and pretty much that. But that has set the tone for the entire season. I feel like there was something going, and I don't know how it's progressed over the season, but there was something going for the first 10, 15 games. Whenever Spurs won, we'd draw or lose, and vice versa. Whenever we'd win, they'd slip up, and it's kind of felt like that with all those teams jostling for that 4th position. That nobody can quite string together a consistent run of games where they go and they pick up 5-6 wins in a row, and they don't lose for 10 games, and you sort of get some momentum out of it. And I think in the case of West Ham and And Arsenal, because they've got a young side, I think it's understandable. The one that really sticks out like a sore thumb, and it should not be happening, is Man United. When you look at what they've spent, look at the squad that they've tried to assemble in terms of they thought they were going to challenge for a title this season, and they just can't seem to string together consistent performances and ultimately consistent results. They're out the FA Cup. They've gone and drawn to the bottom of the table team. They play Southampton at the weekend, who beat Spurs and beat them deservedly. You know, it's another banana skin for them. Yeah, I mean, like it's worrying for them as well, because if you look ahead to the summer, they've got a lot of players leaving the club potentially, and you know they don't know who their next manager is going to be yet. I saw last night there was rumours that the players want Pochettino. I mean, why the players are having a say in who the manager should be, I do not know.
Well,
yeah,
like,
it's just
the thing about Pochettino is all signs are suggesting that he won't be at PSG next season. So it's quite a realistic option. And Ten Hag's the other one. Yeah. I think it will be Pochettino because he is a manager that United went after for.
But have they missed the boat on
now.
that? I'm not saying it's the same where they got Mourinho and Mourinho had clearly dated. I don't think that's necessarily true of Pochettino. But is he as good as he was 4 or 5 years ago when his stock was there? He's been sacked by Tottenham, and he's done a middling to mediocre job at PSG. Didn't win the league last year. I know he came in mid-season, and hasn't won the Champions League yet.
I don't know if Pochettino will be like a really long-term manager. Like I just don't know if he'd be like extremely long-term, like someone like a Sir Alex or something like that.
If you're being cynical as well, and this would be my worry as a Man United fan, I think what they do not want is a manager that comes in and firstly desperately wants the job, which I'm not saying you want a manager that doesn't want the job, but you want someone that the club have to attract, and then they're prepared to yield what they want. I think that's what Conte would have demanded, because he puts demands on those above him that, look, these are my demands, and if you're not going to back me in the transfer window, then I'll just walk out. And I think if you're a Man United fan, you're worried that Pochettino, who had a similar thing at Spurs, where albeit okay, they're a smaller club, expectations are lower, they work with different budgets, but he got them into the Champions League, and then he got into the Champions League final. In that season, they spent zero in the transfer window. They spent nothing. So he's got history when it comes to being a little bit of a puppet for the guys above him. Albeit he did a good job at Spurs overall, but that would be my concern. I'd look at it and think, is he going to be too easy to be messed around by the guys above him? I think that would be my primary concern.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but it's either him or Ten Hag at the moment.
It seems to be, doesn't it? From the start, it's been those
completely
two.
Dropped out of the
Shot
race.
himself out of it. Yeah.
I mean that was an interesting topic in itself, but
maybe he's trying to get himself sacked so he's then available for the Man United job.
Yeah, I feel like Poch is like he's the easy option. But I think it'll work. I think it'll work to a certain extent. I think like he's good with young players. He'll align with the Ralph Ragnick pressing. I think you can write PSG off. I just think it was like,
I mean, Tuchel didn't, have a great time there, and look what he's done.
It made even more. It sounds ridiculous, but it made even more harder with like Adam Messi and all the other star players to it. It's like,
yeah, I don't think he's a manager. I think if you look at managers, some managers are very like, they have their philosophy and they want certain profiles for that, and others are good at managing egos. Like, I think Zidane was a good example of that. Went to Real Madrid and won, 3 Champions Leagues, and he was very good at managing the big egos in the dressing room. I think Pochettino struggled with that side a bit more, and he didn't have that at Spurs, if we're honest with you. Like, they didn't have loads of big superstars in that dressing room. It was a committed group that were going to buy into what his ideas were. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they get on. I'm not sure he's the man. I think they've missed the boat on him. I think his stock was at its highest a few years ago. He was ahead of the curve a few years ago, and now I'm not so sure. If I was to ask you right now at this moment in time who the favourites are for the top four, and it'll probably change by the weekend's over, who would you say?
Yeah.
And why?
I would top four. So the current top three.
Yeah, excluding the out of the four teams, so West Ham, Man United, Arsenal, Spurs.
I'm tempted to go Arsenal.
See, I think it's still Man United, and the only reason I say that is because I think if it clicks for them, they're the most capable of doing what I've said, which is getting a run of results. I don't think they're playing particularly well, and I don't think anything this season that they've done suggests that they should get in there. But if everybody's kind of stuttering and stumbling along as they have been throughout, if there's anyone that could break free, Arsenal could get lucky with injuries. And if they what I'll say with us is if we keep the same 11 players on the pitch every week, we've got as good a chance as anyone, because in terms of the balance of the team and the profiles we've got, it works, I think, better than the other three teams. The problem is you scratch beneath the surface a little bit, lose a couple of players, and then we're struggling.
But
So
unless it comes down to injuries, and I think you've got enough depth to cover injuries in a couple of or a good few positions.
It depends where we get injuries from. For me,
I think you are playing the best football, which is controversial to say.
Yeah, just struggling to score goals, I think. But I think that's mostly down to not having a quality striker. I mean, you look at the game tonight, Lacazette has 3 chances, hits the target with one of them. And I think he's got as many goals as Gabriel this season. So it's clear to see where our problems are. I think that's the most encouraging thing for me quickly is with Arsenal, I think you can look at it and go, if they get a quality centre and a quality striker, they'll be a good team. Whereas I think if you look at Spurs and Man United, I don't think it's as obvious. I know Man United, everyone goes on about centre midfield, but I actually think they've got other problems in their team as well. You look at the fullbacks, look at Maguire struggling this season, you look at their wingers that struggled this season. I don't think it's as obvious as, they get a couple of positions. Spurs the same. Spurs yesterday against Southampton.
Sancho was the only good player, really.
Sancho was good. Should mention, he did play. He's looked better recently. He's definitely their best winger. I know people will think I'm mad based on how many goals and assists he's got this season, but if you actually look at him, he looks to find other players. I think that the problem with Rashford especially is he just shoots too much. He doesn't get his head up and pick someone out. But it's going to be interesting.
On the right, like he can't cut in if he's playing.
That's why
they've
put him over there. That's why they've put him over there to stop him cutting in and shooting. I quickly want to ask you before we finish about the other end of the table. Newcastle had a good win against Everton, a deserved win, should be said. Yeah. Where does that leave everything for you? Are they now favourites to get out of it, given who they've added in January? Although Adam Eder got a cheeky assist. I should add. You should just throw that in there. He's found some red hot form.
Watch out! He's got 3 goal contributions in 3 games now. 2 assists, 1 goal.
Yeah.
Just keep an eye on it. Just keep an eye on it. Get him in your fantasy team. Eder's doing well. And I think Eder's a talent. Norwich are just more solid. The only reason they lost that game is because Zaha put in an absolute worldie.
They drew. It was a world. It was 1-1. Zaha missed the penalty, didn't he? But he also scored an absolute worldie. Yeah. They've been better, Norwich. I mean, they had a good win. They beat Wolves 1-0 on Saturday in the FA Cup as well. Yeah. I actually think, funnily enough, it will come down to Norwich or Newcastle. And I did not think I'd be saying that at the start of the season.
I know. We're like, if Norwich stay up, we are going to have to do a massive apology on this podcast.
I actually think if you look,
we might have to resign if Norwich stay up.
Pre the Saudi takeover, I would have said Norwich and Newcastle were dead certs to go down. Honestly, like what I was seeing week on week from them was so bad, and you just could not see a way out of it from them. Now, Newcastle, it's come in the form of a takeover, and Norwich has come in the form of actually, I think, it was circumstantial. Villa had literally just sacked Dean, but I think he's the best manager they could have got in that situation. Like they can't ask for much better than him, given their situation. They're not going to get much better.
What better manager is it than one that has control of the goal line technology switch? Like that is like
That's brilliant.
you can't get a better manager than that. That'll come in handy at some stage. He hasn't played that card just yet.
No,
but me and George were raving about Burnley and saying how lucky they are, and I still think they are unlucky, but they haven't picked up the points. So
no,
they're marking
it's
us there.
interesting with Burnley because they've obviously got all the games in hand. So if you look at the
Yeah,
table, they're still
yeah.
bottom, but they've got 2 games in hand on Newcastle, 3 on Norwich, 2 on Watford, and so if they win,
Brentford is one I think
Brentford are on the slide.
I'm worried for them. They're on a
Yeah,
slide. They're not too far
they
away.
did lose to Man City, it should be said. So it's to be
But they
expected.
haven't been playing well though.
No,
And what is that? They've got Burnley have 4 games on Brentford. That's a maximum of 12 points. So technically, Burnley can jump above Brentford. Just as
Brentford have lost their last 6, including the FA Cup.
so, that's what we're looking at here. Brentford need a big swing in form. Otherwise, I think they'll be
They
relegated.
do have a winnable.
If you keep up that form, they will be relegated.
They've got a winnable run of games. They got Palace, Newcastle, Norwich, and Burnley in the next 5. So you feel like if they could,
Palace are the other one. And and nobody's talking about them. Even we've talked them up this season.
I think it's because they've played well. Like they've played better. If you look at some of the other metrics, like expected points, expected goals, they've actually played better than the 25 points they've accumulated. I accept your point. Like they are dipping, but
I would be surprised if they had dropped in, but I still don't think they're out of it yet.
Yeah.
There's that other 14 baseline tracker.
I saw
on
that,
Twitter.
and they've really struggled, haven't they, against the other 14?
They've really struggled there. Off the top of my head, I think they're maybe 3rd or 4th from bottom on that. So it just shows they're not doing great. But I think they're definitely lucky because on the XG tables they're
Much higher.
They're much higher, which is fair enough. But XG doesn't count for anything. It has to be the actual goals and the actual points. Otherwise, you could just be unlucky for a whole season and go down. So
what about Everton? I mean, they're right in there. I mean, points wise,
they've got Lampard though.
They were really poor though. I mean, Newcastle battered them.
Have I not said it already? They've got Lampard though. They're going to be okay, Harry. Lampard. Nah, seriously though. Hey, seriously, they've been good. I think Lampard will actually keep them up on it, and I think that there's enough there. I think with the Newcastle game, people may think they were poor, which is fair enough. But I thought the atmosphere for Newcastle was amazing.
Some of the new signings been in, yeah.
I think it was more to do with like Newcastle being incredible, but it's fair enough that Newcastle are definitely in a relegation scrap and need to get a lot better. I do back Lampard, being a great manager and getting them out of that. So I think the league candidates for me are the league candidates for being taken into the relegation. Newcastle are just out of it, and I think Brentford are in that as well.
Take their place, yeah.
Newcastle, Norwich, Watford, Burnley.
I
think it's firmly between those 5. I think it might be a wee bit adventurous for me to say that Everton and Leeds are just a step ahead of them, even though that's not what the table says.
Well, Brentford have played 3 more games than Everton and 2 more than Leeds. Brentford played 24 matches, which is more than anyone else. So it's perfectly reasonable. Games in hand probably don't mean as much for the teams down the bottom because ultimately they're down there for a reason. They're not, going to win loads and loads of games. But
not guaranteed they're going to win any of those
Brentford
games.
Can't get any points from games they've already played. So they're just going to sit there and potentially teams are going to, overtake them and drag them into it. I think I agree with you. It's between those 5. If you ask me to name 3, I think at the moment, based on what I've seen, I'd probably go with the current bottom 3. I think they're all going to struggle to get enough points to get out of it.
I think it would. And honest, I really like Burnley and I really like Norwich. Norwich just because they've got a couple of the good Irish players in there, and Burnley just because there's something different about Burnley, and like they're horrible to play against. But like they just do things ever so slightly different to everyone, and I appreciate that, and I wish they'd stay up because of that. But it might be the season they finally get called out, and go
Feels
down.
like it. Feels like it. They're not winning enough games. I think we'll leave it there for tonight. Thank you for joining me, Fergal. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.